Everyone says I'm just a dog by Gavin's side. I've been stabbed for him, risked my life, and followed his every command. But later, he sold me to an old man for a business deal. Gavin sneered with contempt. Don't think I don't know what you're after. You like men, don't you? I'll let you have your fun. Later, I was tortured to death by the old man, only to be reborn at 18, the year I first met Gavin. I finally realized that all along, I had mistaken my savior. Gavin sold me to an old man for a business deal. He looked down on me with disgust. Liam, just thinking about you being by my side all these years makes me sick to my stomach. He had me thrown into a private room and walked away. As the door closed, I smiled. Gavin, I'm sorry for bothering you for 10 years. I won't do it anymore. I closed my eyes and let the old man choke me. He enjoyed the pleasure of torturing me. I don't know how long it was. My body was covered in wounds, like a broken doll, barely alive. Then, my phone rang. I knew it was Gavin because that was the ringtone I had set specifically for him. I was afraid he might need me and not be able to find me. But I didn't have the strength to answer the phone. I was too exhausted. Gavin, this is the last time I'll help you. I'm giving you back my life. Old man answered the phone with a smile. Mr. Grant, this one was just what I needed today. I'll handle that deal for you. We've got to stay in touch. Damn, why did he hang up on me? Old man impatiently threw the phone aside. He glanced at me, barely breathing, and shouted to the bodyguard outside the door, "Two of you, come in and take care of this. Throw him in the sea." A loud bang echoed through the room. The door to the private room was kicked open with force. In a daze, I seemed to see Gavin. I never thought I'd be dying and still thinking about Gavin. How pathetic. Liam, you're supposed to be so tough. Why didn't you fight back? Why? Gavin hugged me and screamed. Something hit my face. It was burning hot. Gavin was crying. He was crying for me. I must be dreaming. If I could live again, I wouldn't want to meet Gavin. I'm so tired. I never thought I'd really be reborn. I stood there, dazed, listening to the chaotic noise around me, realizing I was in a bar. I was wearing a bar attendant's uniform, holding a tray, and being blocked by several middle-aged men. They were groping me and uttering obscene words. You're all out here selling yourselves, so stop pretending with us. Serving us is a favor we're doing you, so don't be ungrateful. I froze for a moment as they grabbed my arms, trying to drag me away. The disgusting sensation made me instantly think of that old man from my previous life. Let me go. I tried to break free. But my frail body couldn't escape the grip of 3 grown men. In fact, it only aroused their interest further. How disgusting. Kill them. Kill them. Voices echoed in my head, urging me on. Anyway, there was nothing left in this world worth living for. I managed to break free from one of their hands and reached into my pants pocket. There lay the utility knife I had prepared long ago. However, just as I grabbed the knife, a voice etched deep into my memory suddenly rang out. You dare cause trouble on Grant family territory? You must be tired of living. It was 20-year-old Gavin. I looked at the teenager not far away. The chaotic lights of the bar illuminated his face, so much so that I couldn't make out his features clearly, whether from my past life or the present. I only knew he was the young master of the Grant family. But I didn't know that the Grant family actually had 2 young masters. Just like in my previous life. Gavin had the men dealt with, then gave me some money as compensation. In my previous life, I took the money and etched his name into my heart. I told myself, Liam, from now on, your life no longer belongs to you, it belongs to Gavin. So later, no matter how much he humiliated and mistreated me, I did so without regret. But now, I don't want to have anything to do with him anymore. I don't want this money. I don't want to owe him my life. Wait. I called out to the young man who was about to leave and took a step toward him. But he was blocked by his bodyguard, who was on high alert. There was always a distance between us. At that moment, the DJ's wild dance music blared from the speakers. The crowd went wild, swaying their bodies wildly. The entire bar descended into a chaotic frenzy. Fireworks exploded around the dance floor, illuminating the bar with a bright light. I stared at the teenager's face from a distance, frozen in place. He wasn't Gavin. He just resembled Gavin in the eyes and brows. But he was more handsome than Gavin. What else is there? The teenager seemed annoyed that I was staring at him, furrowing his brows slightly. At that moment, my heart raced, and I struggled to breathe. It turned out that all along, I had mistaken my savior. The idea of repaying him was pushed aside. I heard my own hoarse voice, "What's your name?" The teenager seemed hesitant. I hurriedly said, "I at least need to know my savior's name so I can repay you in the future." The young man paused, about to speak. But the bodyguard beside him interrupted, "My young master's name is Gavin." I didn't know why the bodyguard was lying to me. But the young man didn't refute it. His body seemed stiff, and a trace of self-mockery flashed in his eyes. The bodyguard urged again, "Young Master Caleb, you should go back. Don't make the master angry." Hearing the bodyguard's address to the young man, I froze. The Grant family was the wealthiest in Riverside, and I had heard that Gavin was their only son. When did another young Master Caleb appear? Moreover, having been by Gavin's side for 10 years in my previous life, I had never heard him mention having a younger brother. To figure out what was going on, I used the money the young man gave me to hire a private investigator. But the information I got was scarce. The only thing I found out was that the Grant family indeed had more than one child. There was also a Caleb Grant. The Grant family felt ashamed and had kept Caleb Grant's identity a secret. But something still felt off to me. The Grant family was a prominent clan. Having a son like Caleb Grant wasn't that unusual. Why go to such lengths to hide him? I wanted to see Caleb again. Every night after that, I went to that bar to work part-time. But I never saw him again. I started to panic. I was afraid I'd never see Caleb again. Until that day, when loan sharks cornered me in an alley. Caleb appeared. He was wearing a hat with the brim pulled down low. "Ugh, it's you again?" Caleb looked disgusted. "Another womanizer?" He flexed his fists, looking like he could fight. But the next second, he suddenly grabbed my hand and shouted, "Run!" I was dragged by Caleb, running through the night. The loan sharks were chasing us relentlessly. I glanced at Caleb's half-exposed face under his hat brim, feeling the warmth from his palm, and unconsciously clasped his hand. My heart was pounding. I thought, let's just keep running, Caleb. Don't disappear again. But Caleb was too weak. After running through 5 intersections, he couldn't go on. We were cornered by the loan sharks. The leader, Baldy, was furious and cursed at us before punching me without hesitation. Caleb stepped in front of me. Fool. Actually, I'm pretty good at fighting. Even though my current body is weak, in my previous life, I spent 10 years learning various martial arts techniques to get to Gavin's side. I climbed my way up step by step, risking my life. A second chance at life, muscle memory doesn't fade. I quickly took care of the loan sharks and told them, my father's debt will be paid back in installments. Don't bother me again. The loan sharks nodded nervously and fled in panic. You're so good at fighting, why did you run? Caleb leaned against the wall, panting heavily. I looked innocent. You didn't ask me. How much do you owe them? Caleb asked me. Over 5 million with interest, I calculated. Half a year ago, I just finished the college entrance exam and my family went bankrupt. Overnight, all our assets were seized, and we ended up on the streets, being chased by creditors. My father couldn't handle the blow and jumped to his death. I started working day and night to pay off the debts. The bar was just one of the places I worked. Even though I was often harassed, I earned a lot, so being taken advantage of didn't matter. But then my mother died too. I had no hope left. Caleb didn't know that on the day I met him, I was planning to kill those bastards who had been bullying me, then find a secluded place to join my parents. But he saved me and did me a favor. I have to repay him. I'll help you repay him. Caleb spoke up. Why? I want to know the reason. Caleb tugged at the corner of his mouth, looking unconcerned, because I'm kind. As soon as he finished speaking, he let out a faint groan, as if he had pulled on something painful. I tensed up immediately, worried that he might have been injured during the fight earlier. Let me see if you're hurt anywhere. Caleb turned his head away, but eventually gave in to my persistence. I finally saw the other half of his face, which had a clear handprint on it. The mark was swollen and bruised. It was clear that the slap had been very hard. Let me get you some medicine. I pulled Caleb. Caleb refused, unconcerned. What medicine? It doesn't hurt. I'm used to it. I placed my hand on Caleb's face. Caleb yelped in pain. Are you crazy? It hurts so much. I looked at Caleb. You said it didn't hurt. Caleb rolled his eyes, reluctantly following me to the pharmacy to buy medicine. Under the bright lights, I saw Caleb's face clearly for the first time. He had long eyelashes, a high nose bridge, and a sharp yet refined jawline. He was afraid of pain and sensitive. As soon as I applied the ointment with my index finger, his entire face turned red from the pain. Let me do it myself. Caleb tried to grab the ointment. I stepped back. I'm hurting you. I'll be gentler. I applied the ointment more gently. Caleb's face seemed to turn even redder, spreading all the way down to his neck. Does it still hurt? I'll be gentler, it'll be over soon. I coaxed him carefully. Just shut up. Caleb was restless and irritable. After the ointment was applied, Caleb immediately pulled away from me. You're holding a grudge. I looked at Caleb and asked him, where can I find you if I want to see you in the future? Caleb was impatient. Why do you want to find me? To repay you, to pay you back. I came up with a plausible excuse. Actually, I was just afraid that after we parted tonight, I wouldn't be able to find him again. Caleb didn't know. Actually, being cornered by loan sharks in the alley tonight wasn't a coincidence. It happened in my previous life too. At that time, he also appeared. But in my previous life, I mistook him for Gavin. Or rather, before that, I had no idea who the person who saved me in the alley in my previous life actually was. I could only take a chance. I wanted to see Caleb so badly. I was afraid I might never see him again. Fortunately, I won the bet. This time, I wasn't knocked unconscious by the loan sharks, didn't wake up in a hospital room, and didn't mistake Gavin, who happened to be in the hospital room, for my savior again. You can find me at Ivy University. Caleb's voice sounded a bit muffled. He didn't know that I was also at Ivy University. So I knew. There's only Gavin at Ivy University, not Caleb. Caleb paused for a moment and asked instinctively, how do you know my name? I used the money you gave me to hire a private investigator and found it out. I spoke honestly. Shit. Caleb cursed. What else did you find out? I shook my head. Nothing except his name. It was as if Caleb didn't exist in this world. Caleb seemed to relax a bit and started distancing himself from me. I saved you out of kindness. You don't need to repay me. Let's just pretend we never met. Caleb walked away after saying that. I followed him. As he grew impatient, he asked, what do you want? So where can I find you? I insisted. For some reason, I felt that if I let him leave like this, I really wouldn't be able to find Caleb again. Believe it or not, I'll beat you up. Caleb waved his fist threateningly. You can't beat me. I laughed. Caleb rolled his eyes and ran off, trying to shake me off. He seemed to have a short memory. He couldn't outrun me. Caleb leaned against the wall, his chest rising and falling heavily, unsure if he was exhausted or angry. Fine, I'll tell you. I'm at the Grant family estate. Come find me if you dare. Caleb gave up. He seemed certain that the Grant family estate was heavily guarded and I couldn't get in. But in my previous life, I had been with Gavin and had been to the Grant family estate countless times. I knew the place like the back of my hand. Caleb, we'll have plenty of time. I smiled and waved goodbye as Caleb left. He seemed to think I had given up, paused for a moment, then turned and left, his back silhouetted against the night, tinged with a hint of loneliness. The next evening, I slipped into the Grant family compound under the cover of darkness and made my way to Caleb's room. The room was empty, but the sound of running water came from the bathroom. Caleb must be taking a shower. His room was sparsely furnished, with only a bed, a desk, and a computer. The computer was on, displaying a string of unfinished code. The desk was littered with a pile of messy draft papers. I picked up one of the papers and glanced at it. It was filled with calculations and scribbles related to the code, but it seemed like he hadn't made any progress. It was clear that Caleb really wanted to finish writing this code. Unfortunately, it seemed like he hadn't been able to do so. I thought to myself, I found a way to stay by Caleb's side. After all, I had entered Ivy University's prestigious computer science program as the top science student in the province during the college entrance exams. At that moment, I heard a noise coming from the bathroom. I instinctively looked over. Caleb was drying his hair as he stepped out of the bathroom. He was bare-chested, with only a loose towel wrapped around his waist. At 19, his body was in the prime of his life. Plus, he seemed to be into working out. His abdominal muscles were well-defined and almost perfect. I stared at him, mesmerized. Suddenly, I heard Caleb's panicked voice, You, how did you get in here? Caleb's entire body turned red in an instant. I snapped back to reality and swallowed involuntarily. Speaking casually, I climbed in. Caleb was speechless. The Grant family's security system was renowned for being impenetrable. Caleb couldn't believe I had sneaked in without making a sound. But here I was, standing right in front of him, leaving him no choice but to believe me. Before they notice you, get out of here. Caleb pushed me away nervously. I'm not leaving. I insisted. As we pushed and shoved, we inevitably made physical contact. My hand accidentally landed on Caleb's chest. Caleb's body trembled almost instinctively. What are you doing, you pervert? He jumped back in fright, his hands shielding his chest, glaring at me with suspicion and anger. But his body gave a completely different response. For example, his ears were red as if they were bleeding. Or, under the towel. But the only thing I could think of was Gavin's disgusted gaze from my previous life. He said I was disgusting. I was afraid Caleb would also find me disgusting. I pretended not to care, we're all men. Why be so sensitive? I could take advantage of you. Caleb glared at me in shame and anger. He grabbed the clothes lying on the bed and rushed into the bathroom. The door slammed shut with a loud bang. At least no one else would discover us now. I chuckled and shook my head, looking at my burning palms. There seemed to be a lingering sensation of the teenager's touch. Lean, hot, yet still strong. Perhaps I'll never feel that again in this lifetime. I repeated to myself over and over, Liam, as long as I can stay by his side, that's enough. Don't be greedy. Caleb quickly changed and came out. Seeing me still there, he glared at me and shooed me away. Why aren't you leaving yet? I didn't say I was leaving. After living 2 lifetimes, I finally found him. I won't let go easily. I picked up the scrap paper on the table. I'm really good at computers. I can teach you. Caleb snatched the paper away. I have a tutor. I don't need you to teach me. Then your tutor must not be very good. He can't even teach you such simple code? I said deliberately. Caleb got angry. Who said he's not good? He's a top student at Ivy University. Then you must be the one who can't. You. Caleb was so angry he couldn't speak, and his ears turned red for no apparent reason. I'm also a top student at Ivy University, majoring in computer science. I can teach him better than anyone. I don't know which words made Caleb change his mind, but he agreed. Caleb rarely goes out. So we made a deal. Every night at 10 o'clock, I'd sneak in to give him lessons, and no one could find out. I also found out that Caleb had never attended school from childhood to adulthood. He'd always been tutored at home and hadn't even taken the college entrance exam a year ago. Every night at 10 o'clock, I'd knock on Caleb's window. At first, he was always worried I'd get caught. Later, he started complaining that the security system was a scam. After teaching Caleb for a few days, I realized that the reason he couldn't write code well was simply because he lacked foundational knowledge. I started teaching him the most basic theoretical knowledge. Caleb was smart and learned quickly. Gradually, he was able to independently write some complex programs. That evening, I just arrived at Caleb's room. Caleb pointed at the computer desktop and excitedly rushed toward me. I did it. I actually wrote this difficult code. He was so excited that he didn't notice the obstacle in front of him. It was no surprise that he tripped. I instinctively reached out to catch him. But I underestimated his weight. I was pinned to the ground by Caleb, our bodies pressed tightly together. The weather in May was already starting to get hot, so I was only wearing a thin shirt on top. Caleb, being young and full of energy, was only wearing a loose-fitting sports tank top. His body heat seeped through the thin fabric, clearly transferring to me. It was scorching hot. For a moment, my mind went blank. But the next second, the physical reaction in my lower body snapped me back to reality. Liam, you really disgust me. Gavin's disgusted expression appeared before me. I was panicking and pushed Caleb away forcefully. Without realizing it, I pushed him hard, and he fell to the side, looking at me in shock. I'm sorry, I didn't know what to say. Say that I had inappropriate thoughts about him. Say how disgusting and filthy I am. At that moment, Caleb's door was knocked on. It gave me the perfect excuse to leave. I hurriedly stood up to leave. But the door had already been pushed open. Standing outside was Gavin. This was the first time I had seen Gavin since I was reborn. Due to his congenital heart disease, he was much thinner and weaker than Caleb. When he saw me, he seemed to freeze for a moment, his voice betraying a hint of uncontrollable emotion. Liam! If I remember correctly, I had avoided the hospital incident, so Gavin and I shouldn't have known each other at this point. Do you know him? Caleb asked me, sounding a bit angry. I shook my head. No, I don't. Do you hate Gavin? Not really. After all, in my previous life, I mistook him for someone else and pursued him for 10 years. If anyone should hate, it should be Gavin. After all, I made him feel so disgusted. Gavin forced a stiff smile at me. Actually, we've met before. You just don't remember. Maybe. But I don't care anymore. Why are you here? Gavin asked me. From start to finish, his gaze never left me. He's the tutor I hired. Please, don't tell anyone. Caleb stood in front of me. It was clear he was afraid of Gavin. Or maybe he was afraid I'd be discovered. If you knew it would involve others, you shouldn't have brought him back. Gavin coldly stared at Caleb, his eyes filled with unhidden disgust. Caleb kept his head down and said nothing. Gavin stepped forward and grabbed me, intending to take me away. I broke free from Gavin. I insisted on coming to find Caleb. It had nothing to do with him. In an instant, the color drained from Gavin's face. In the end, I followed Gavin out. The commotion inside the house had attracted the servants of the Grant family. I had no choice but to follow Gavin to avoid putting Caleb in a difficult position. On the way, Gavin sneered, "Do you know he's just Caleb Grant, a member of the Grant family?" I didn't care. So what? Gavin paused, apparently not expecting such a response from me. It seemed I had angered him, and he began to tell me about Caleb's background. Caleb's mother, Sophia, had once been a servant in the Grant family. However, she had seduced Mr. Grant while Mrs. Grant was pregnant with Gavin, resulting in Caleb's birth. This nearly led to Gavin's parents divorcing. Later, Sophia died in a car accident, and Caleb was taken in by the Grant family. The Grant family always considered him a disgrace, so they never acknowledged his identity in public and even barred him from stepping foot outside the house. When Caleb was young and naive, he would often sneak out to play and made a good friend. Later, this friend was discovered by the Grant family, and his entire family was forced into poverty, leaving Riverside and never returning. From then on, Caleb learned his lesson. Gavin looked down on him with contempt. A bastard born to a whore is nothing but a burden. Are you really going to keep entangling yourself with him? Gavin has always been a man who never gives up until he gets what he wants. He was doing everything in his power to keep me away from Caleb. Though I didn't know why he was doing this. But I still answered him, I don't care. I don't care about his identity as Caleb Grant. I don't care if he drags me down. I just want to stay by his side. In the days that followed, I noticed that the Grant family's security had been upgraded, and I couldn't sneak in as easily as before. I could only stand outside the Grant family's gate, gazing at the light in Caleb's room from afar. I stayed there until the light went out before leaving. I never expected to see Caleb downstairs in the dormitory building. He was wearing a black, loose-fitting short-sleeve shirt and a baseball cap, the brim pulled down as low as usual, standing under the camphor tree in front of my dormitory building. Shrouded in shadow. At first, I didn't notice him, it was simply too dark, and he was hiding too well. It was only when I passed by him that I caught a whiff of his scent. I couldn't describe the smell. I'd only ever smelled it on Caleb. Unique and inexplicably alluring. I stopped in my tracks and called out to the figure, Caleb. Caleb flinched but didn't speak. I walked up to him, why are you here? Don't you want me anymore? Caleb's voice was hoarse. How could that be? I denied it without hesitation. Then why didn't you come find me? Caleb looked up at me. His beautiful eyes were bloodshot and seemed to be brimming with tears. I explained, the Grant family's security has been upgraded, and I can't get in. I can only wait outside the gate every night. You really came to find me every day? Caleb's eyes lit up. I nodded. Children are so easy to please. I hadn't even started comforting him yet, and he was already better. Caleb had sneaked out again. He told me he'd found a way to hack the Grant family security system, allowing it to shut down for a short time each day without being detected, giving me enough time to sneak into the Grant family's compound. I'll wait for you tomorrow night. All right. We made a plan. But the next night, the Grant family's security system didn't shut down. Caleb was nowhere to be found. I searched everywhere but couldn't find him. I panicked. In the end, I thought of Gavin. He must know where Caleb is. I burst into Gavin's dorm room, but Gavin wasn't there. His roommate was. Where's Gavin? Where is he? I asked his roommate urgently. His roommate looked at me suspiciously. Who are you? What do you want with him? I didn't have time to explain. I grabbed his collar and demanded, I'll ask again. Where is he? Gavin's roommate was scared and stammered, he had a heart attack and went to the hospital. My mind exploded. I suddenly remembered that in my previous life, Gavin had undergone a heart transplant that year. The person who donated the heart was Caleb. I rushed madly toward the hospital built by the Grant family. I would never let Caleb die, even if it cost me my life. There were bodyguards guarding the hospital entrance. They blocked me from entering. I punched one of the bodyguards hard, knocking him unconscious. I was grateful that in this life, Caleb had already helped me repay my debt. I no longer had to live like I did in my previous life, working odd jobs and barely making ends meet. My body wasn't as weak anymore, and I even had the energy to work out and box every day. That's why I wasn't completely defenseless when facing these bodyguards. The bodyguards clearly didn't expect me to charge in, let alone fight back. They warned me that this was Grant family territory and that causing trouble here meant I didn't want to live anymore. Give Caleb back to me. I wasn't afraid. They learned my purpose and immediately grew wary, launching an attack on me. I clenched my fists and struck directly at their vital points. At that moment, I was deeply grateful for all the efforts I had made in my previous life to stay by Gavin's side. These bodyguards weren't a match for me, but they outnumbered me, and I didn't gain much of an advantage. I wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth and pushed forward as they retreated step by step. Liam. Gavin's voice came from behind the bodyguards. He was wearing a hospital gown, his face pale and bloodless, but his emotions were running high. You're back too, aren't you? Gavin ignored the bodyguard's attempts to stop him and walked toward me. I demanded, where is Caleb? Gavin's already pale face grew even paler. He spoke with difficulty, his voice trembling. So you didn't come here for me? You came for that bastard? He's not a bastard. I ignored Gavin. I had to find Caleb. He's already dead. Gavin's voice echoed in my ears, pounding against my heart. He wore a cruel smile on his face, pointing to his own chest. His heart is here. Are you really going to kill me for him? Beast! I punched Gavin hard in the face. Gavin didn't dodge, and blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. He casually wiped the blood from his lips, staring at me. I knew you couldn't bring yourself to kill me, Liam. You have me here. He pointed at my chest. All right, I'm tired. Take me back to the ward. Gavin reached out his hand, asking me to help him back. I silently took his arm and escorted him back to the ward. I don't believe Caleb is dead. Even if he is, I'll take his body with me. He wanted to leave the Grant family. No matter what happens, I'll take him away. Just then, a doctor entered the ward. Young Master Gavin, the surgery is ready. I'll take you to the operating room now. Before he could finish, the utility knife in my hand was already pressed against Gavin's neck. Take me to Caleb. You won't kill me. Gavin spoke with certainty. I tightened my grip, and a bloody gash appeared on Gavin's neck, blood flowing down. The doctor was terrified, fearing I might kill Gavin and implicate him, and hurriedly said, he's in the operating room. Let young Master Gavin go immediately. I dropped Gavin and rushed out. I didn't see the shock and regret on Gavin's face behind me. I left the hospital with the unconscious Caleb. He had been given anesthesia and remained unconscious for 10 hours before waking up. I cooked porridge for him and told him about what happened at the hospital. Thank you for saving me. Caleb's expression was calm. It seemed as though he had already anticipated the heart transplant. He had always known that no one in the Grant family liked him. Even if he died, no one would care. I'm sorry for dragging you into this. Caleb's eyelashes trembled slightly, like a doll about to break. We've offended the Grant family. We might not have a way out. But I don't care about being dragged into this. I've already died once. Every extra day I live is a bonus, especially since I met Caleb in this life. I'm already satisfied. The only thing I need to do is help Caleb survive. At that moment, my phone rang. It was the private investigator I had hired. He said I had given him so much money, but he hadn't found anything, and he felt bad about it. However, now he had uncovered quite a bit of information and had sent the recording to me. He told me to listen to it myself. The PI sent me an audio file. He also found out about Caleb's mother Sophia's car accident and death. So he used his connections to find the truck driver who killed Sophia in prison. But unexpectedly, he uncovered a shocking truth. It turned out that Sophia had never seduced Mr. Grant. It was Mr. Grant who had been infatuated with Sophia's beauty and had always wanted to possess her. This was known to Mrs. Grant. At the time, Mrs. Grant's family had already fallen into decline, while Mr. Grant's business was thriving. She knew that her husband, whom she had married for political reasons, had never loved her. To prevent him from cheating on her, Mrs. Grant drugged Sophia and sent her to her husband's bed. She didn't expect Sophia to become pregnant. Even more unexpectedly, her child was diagnosed with congenital heart disease shortly after birth. To give Gavin a perfect heart, she allowed Sophia to give birth to Caleb. She then hired someone to kill Sophia and imprisoned Caleb. Finally, she had the truck driver who had killed Sophia sent to prison. In this way, she successfully maintained her marriage and made arrangements for Gavin's future. The only ones harmed in this matter was Caleb and his mother. After listening to the entire recording, Caleb burst into tears, as if trying to cry out all the injustice he had endured over the past decade. I gently patted his back to comfort him. He cried himself to sleep. I uploaded the recording online. This was the only way to save Caleb's life. As I had anticipated, the incident quickly caused a stir throughout Riverside. Mr. Grant was indeed a seasoned businessman. He immediately distanced himself from Mrs. Grant, announcing that they had already divorced and that the police would handle the matter according to the law. Then, he came to find me. In the office, Mr. Grant sat in his executive chair, his gaze sweeping over me with a sense of overwhelming pressure. "What do you want?" "I just want Caleb to live." I met his gaze. He paused for a moment, then smiled calmly. "You're a brave one. You succeeded. And from now on, the Grant family will have only one son, Caleb." He had abandoned Gavin without a second thought. But it had nothing to do with me. All I knew was that Caleb was finally free. I accompanied Caleb to visit his mother. Sophia's grave was small, buried in a remote cemetery overgrown with weeds. Caleb knelt on the ground, slowly pulling out the weeds. He cleaned it for a long time before it was finally tidy. He then knelt before the grave for a long time. I knelt beside him. "You know, actually, I used to hate her." Caleb spoke slowly, his voice choked with emotion. "I hated her for destroying someone else's family, for abandoning me, for making me suffer so much. But clearly, she was the one who was truly wronged." Caleb hugged his mother's tombstone, crying uncontrollably until he was exhausted. He said, "I want to find a new place for my mom to rest. It's too cold here, she wouldn't like it." I nodded. We chose a sunny day and moved Sophia's grave to a place filled with sunlight and flowers. Caleb introduced me to Sophia. "Mom, this is Liam, someone very important to me." I spoke seriously. "Auntie, don't worry. I'll take good care of him." Having completely escaped the Grant family's confinement, Caleb chose to repeat a year of high school to apply for the computer science program at Ivy University. He didn't want to live with the Grant family and moved out on his own. I started tutoring him in high school subjects. He was very talented, consistently scoring over 700 on his college entrance exam papers. If he hadn't been imprisoned by the Grant family, he would have already been admitted to Ivy University as the top science student in the province a year ago, becoming my senior. On the way to find Caleb that day, I encountered Gavin. He had lost a lot of weight and looked utterly dejected. "Liam, you don't want me anymore, do you?" He looked up at me, his eyes brimming with tears. He looked just like Caleb. But he wasn't Caleb. "I'm sorry, Gavin. I made a mistake at first." I looked at Gavin apologetically. If I hadn't made that mistake, we would never have crossed paths. Gavin suddenly lost control and grabbed my arm. "It was you who provoked me first. You provoked me. How dare you say you made a mistake and just abandon me like this?" I pushed Gavin away. "I can give you any compensation you want. I have to go, I'm going to be late." I hurried to leave. If I'm late, Caleb will definitely be angry. "I'm going to die, Liam." Gavin held on to me tightly, pleading, "Please, stay with me." His heart transplant surgery didn't go through, and he might not have much time left. But I really had to go. "I'm sorry." I refused him. Gavin wasn't giving up, threatening me. "You don't want Caleb to find out how you feel about him, do you?" I stopped in my tracks. Gavin thought his threat had worked. "Liam, I don't find you disgusting. Stay by my side." But I stopped because I saw Caleb in the distance. He seemed to have heard Gavin's words and was staring at me coldly. I hurriedly pushed Gavin away and ran after Caleb. Caleb, it's not what you think. I panicked and tried to explain. Don't listen to Gavin. We're both men, what could I possibly want? Oh. Caleb's tone was cold as he kept walking ahead. I could only follow silently. Fortunately, Caleb didn't get angry and chase me away. He even let me stay with him so I could help him with his homework. I smiled bitterly. This kid really isn't afraid of inviting a wolf into his home. But I'm afraid. I'm afraid that spending so much time with him will make him notice something. I'm afraid he'll find me disgusting like Gavin did. I refused. But in the days that followed, Caleb kept calling me for help, saying he'd accidentally bumped into something, or fallen, or even almost been electrocuted. I'm sorry, I'm just so clumsy. Caleb looked at me pitifully. He was a spoiled rich kid who had always been taken care of, so it was normal for him to lack experience in independent living. With no other choice, I agreed to move in with Caleb. I was afraid that if things continued like this, he might really end up hurting himself. Caleb's place was a large, open-plan apartment. Apart from the occasional cleaning service, no one else came by. After moving in, I took on the responsibility of cooking. Caleb would help with the dishes. Life went on peacefully enough. I gradually put my worries aside. I thought, maybe this was for the best. Until the day Caleb got accepted into Ivy University. He grabbed a bottle of wine and said he wanted to celebrate. I prepared some snacks to go with the wine. We sat by the window, drinking and chatting. Before I knew it, Caleb was drunk, slumped against me like a pile of mud. Even after spending nearly a year together, I still couldn't handle physical contact with Caleb naturally. Instead, due to long-term repression and the effects of alcohol, I became more sensitive to his body. I pushed Caleb away as if I'd been electrocuted, slapped myself hard, and cursed myself for being an animal. I was afraid he'd catch a cold. I grabbed a blanket and covered him, intending to leave and take a cold shower. But Caleb grabbed me by the arm. He looked at me with reddened eyes, filled with hurt. Liam, do you hate me? No. I avoided Caleb's gaze, unable to look at him. He had no idea how tempting he looked right now. He stared at me. Caleb cupped my face with both hands, forcing me to look at him. The scorching heat from his hands transferred to my face. The reaction in my lower body was almost unbearable. Then why do you always avoid me? Why do you despise me touching you, despise the food I've eaten, despise the things I've used, and yet say you don't hate me? You're a big liar. I smiled bitterly without saying a word. I'll give you back your life. You didn't say a word after leaving the house, you must hate me. Caleb started crying tearfully. I never expected Caleb to act like this when drunk. Stop crying, I don't despise you. I fumbled around trying to comfort him. Caleb cried even harder. You won't wipe my tears. I'll wipe them, stop crying. I hurriedly wiped Caleb's tears. The tingling sensation on my fingertips spread throughout my body, making me shiver uncontrollably. I should be grateful that Caleb wasn't fully awake at that moment, otherwise, he would have noticed something was wrong with me. I was about to lose control. Kiss me. Caleb spoke again. My body stiffened, and I stared blankly at Caleb. The next second, Caleb suddenly leaned in to kiss me. I quickly reached out to stop him. Caleb, do you know what you're doing? Caleb's eyes were clear. I know. He grabbed my hand and moved it away, then kissed my lips, exploring them wildly. At that moment, I couldn't resist any longer and grabbed Caleb's head, taking control. Caleb, don't regret this. Outside the window, the rain poured down heavily. Inside the house, the atmosphere ebbed and flowed, as if it would never end. From now on, I won't let go.